All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this session. I know your time is very valuable, so I'm going to make sure I be as concise as possible with this. We have a lot to cover, so let's just jump right in. All right. So, quick intro. My name is Taher Hamid. I'm the vice president of an MSP in Lakeland, Florida called Alltek Services. I'm also the founder of a membership site called MSP Camp. So, I've been in the MSP space for 8+ years. I've been the head of marketing, sales, and account management for an MSP that's seen some really great growth. So I just want to share kind of what we do when we're about to launch a campaign. What does a campaign entail? How do we prepare for that? And how do we make sure it's going to be successful? So let's just dive in. So the first thing we have to cover is, what is a campaign? It varies greatly. As an example, some MSPs will run one direct mail or one newsletter or one something, and they'll call it a campaign. And that's not wrong, right? In their mind, when they send that direct mail piece, or maybe there's two in the sequence, that is a marketing campaign. And they would be correct, right? Sometimes marketing campaigns can be very simple, as we will see in this presentation. And then other times they're very comprehensive, like the ones that we like to run, and more of what we're going to be covering today. So a couple of key features of a campaign: they are usually vertical or service specific. At least all the campaigns we've run, we're either targeting a vertical or we are communicating and trying to get leads for a specific service: Microsoft 365, co-managed, cybersecurity, VoIP, et cetera, et cetera. Needs to have a defined target audience. Otherwise, you are marketing into a vacuum. You have to have a list, a defined list of people you're going to be going after with this campaign. There needs to be a defined strategy filled with specific tactics for this campaign. Don't worry, we're going to cover that, and we're going to get really, really specific. It should have a defined timeline, although we will see that some campaigns don't. They're an ongoing campaign, which is also fine. And we need to have projected results for the campaign, and we need to be able to see if there's an ROI or not on that campaign. So that is what we're going to be kind of covering in detail today. All right. First up, one mistake we made all of the time when it came to developing and implementing marketing campaigns is focusing on the service instead of the person. An example is when I first started, I spent so much time and effort creating a campaign around HIPAA, and I went hard on this campaign. 0 results. Turns out the person I'm selling to, that doctor, that office manager at that time, did not care about HIPAA. So I was banging this service into somebody, hoping they'd pay attention instead of focusing on them. And so that's why we have to start here. Before we even talk about content, results, etc., we have to start with the person. Who is this avatar? Who's this? You'll hear it all the time, the ideal customer profile. Who is this person, and what do they actually care about? It's very simple to find out what they care about. All you have to do is interview them. So what we do when we're about to run a campaign, we'll interview 3 to 4 clients and potentially a prospect or two. But what do they care about, the specific thing that we're about to be marketing? In this instance, in this example that we're going over today, it's Microsoft 365. The reason I wanted to run this campaign is every time I was in meetings with prospects and even clients, I was hearing these themes that they want to get more out of their Microsoft 365, right? They were interested in SharePoint, they were interested in Teams, they didn't know how to use it, etc. So I did these interviews, and these are some of the pain points, not all of them, right? You want to try and get at least 10, ideally 20 to 30 pain points. So here's some examples. I feel like I'm paying for licenses I'm not using. You've heard that. If you're an MSP, you've heard that. My IT provider doesn't provide any training on the subscriptions they sell me. We email documents to each other internally. It gets messy. You've heard that. You've recommended and told them that that's messy. I think everyone has the same access, even our in-the-field workers. We pay for all these add-ons. Isn't that included with Microsoft stuff? A lot of these are actual quotes, right, from the interviews. I've heard a lot about Teams and SharePoint, but we have no idea how to use it or if we should. So now we're starting off the campaign in the right foot. We're starting to really hear what this prospect is saying, what is in their mind, because that's where we got to go. That's what the content has to speak to. All right, and then we go from pain points to opportunities. So what were the pain points that our target market actually cares about? And what opportunities can we provide to them? Right? That's what the content's going to speak to. Because when we talk about the opportunity, it solves the pain point that they have. And sometimes we specifically talk about the pain points in the campaigns, which you'll see. So example opportunities that we came up with in this campaign. We provide ongoing webinar training for our clients specifically to help them adopt Microsoft 365 into their business. That is something our MSP was doing, and we currently do that every single month. And that's a huge driving force for marketing campaigns. We provide a free Microsoft 365 audit to show you which of your users need what license. People love that. When you say that, oh man, that sounds great. Like lots of head shakes, which licenses you're overpaying for and which ones you can discontinue completely. Like that line. When I start saying that in prospect meetings, I always play the head nod game. When I get some head nods, it means I'm turning that into content. Microsoft 365 Business Premium consolidates many of the current security tools you see on your monthly invoice, eliminating that expense. We can lock down certain features for users based on role. You're paying for third-party tools you don't need if you have a Microsoft 365 subscription. So now we've outlined the pain points and we've outlined the opportunities. I cannot stress enough how important this is if you're going to be running any campaign, no matter how small. If you just want to talk about MDR to your clients, right? Before you even craft the first message, you need to identify the actual pain points and the actual opportunities. That is going to help you craft the right message, the right content. It all comes back to the pain points and opportunities. We used to skip this and we got no results from marketing. Now that we do this, we got a lot more results from marketing. It gets us in the head of our prospect who we are trying to get engaged with us. Okay, I know I've hit this pretty hard. I just want to make sure we have that foundation before we move on. Okay, so that is the first point, first part of any campaign, pain points and opportunities, no matter what. I'm sure there's lots of other marketing terms for it and whatever, but just make sure you have that process before you start a campaign. A couple of housekeeping items before we go even further in developing this campaign, this Microsoft 365 campaign that we're building today. We need to go into some housekeeping. One, every single campaign is filled with tactics. So I want to show you specific tactics and how it relates to the overall campaign. I want to show you a simple and effective marketing campaign used by a really good friend of mine and a real MSP. I want to show you just how simple campaigns can be. I think this is important so we don't get scared from marketing. And then number 3 is the consistency cliche, which we'll talk about right after the simplest marketing strategy you'll ever hear. All right, so let's get into it. We need to just understand that a campaign is like a cake. What goes in the cake is the ingredients. So in this situation, a campaign is a marketing strategy. It is a campaign to go after a certain vertical, certain geographic area. We are going after somebody, right? I outlined in the pain points and opportunities. To identify how we're going to do that, we get to know that person, and then we identify what tactics will likely be most effective for that person we're targeting. We put it together into the cake. That's the campaign. It's really that simple. Marketing seems like this like scary, ambiguous. It's kind of like the cloud, right? Like it's like, it's scary. It's like, we're MSPs and we're still kind of like the cloud. Maybe not all of us, but I know for a while I was. Now we embrace it. So my point in showing this is understanding that pretty much all of the marketing that we've done to go from 3 people in a warehouse to over 5, coming up on $5 million in recurring annual revenue, all of it falls from these tactics. So if you can learn each of these tactics, or your marketing coordinator can learn each of these tactics, which most of them don't take that long at all, now you have all the ingredients you need to create any cake you want. So getting really specific and understanding, okay, this is it: social media posting, Google pay-per-click, direct mail, events, webinar series, LinkedIn prospecting, etc. That's it. Those are pretty much the primary tactics you can even put in your cake. There's more, but these are the only ones that we focused on, some to a larger extent than others. So that's it. I just had to lay out the tactics so you understood as we get further into the campaign. It all stems back from these ingredients right here. You're in the kitchen. This is the only ingredients you have access to. All right, moving on. Campaigns can get complicated for sure. You see those big plans, you see the timelines, the milestones, the whole team working on it. Campaigns can get really complicated. They can also be extremely simple and effective. So here's an example from a friend of mine. We started in the MSP world around the exact same time. We've been doing around the same time. He's taken a completely different strategy than me. I've gone kind of hard on marketing. I like to do all the things. I love content. I've gone in this direction. He is mostly the sales guy, so he has a very slim marketing strategy that he's gone through over the years. And so I wanted to cover that. This is all he would do. He would film, edit, and publish 2 business-to-business tech tips per week. He'd write a custom blog to reiterate what was in the video, and he'd optimize it for SEO, right? Search engine optimization. He would just make sure the keywords are keywords that were actually searched. He'd change the title, maybe change like, the headers, the H2 tags, whatever, just to go after specific keywords. Very simple stuff. I think he used a free plugin, Rank Math, or I think maybe he even just used the marketing agency he was working with. Manually build a list of prospects in his local market. This is an ongoing campaign. He would cold email list both videos to that list, both of the tech tips. He would use broadly to receive more Google reviews than any of his local competitors. And he met a center of influence at least once per month. The center of influence is basically someone that also sells in your market. So for his example, he had a HIPAA consultant that he met with, at least once a quarter, and he'd work with other center of influences like internet service providers, penetration testing companies, etc. That was it. That was all he did. 1 year, he closed $76,000 in MRR. Well, he added almost $1 million in annual recurring revenue off of this strategy, this ongoing campaign. There's probably 2 camps of people that are hearing this right now. There's the camp that says, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Like, yeah, that's a consistent process. Of course, that's going to deliver results. And then there's probably another camp that's like, no, this is too simple. I've tried this. It didn't work. That's silly. But the reality is, this is a real life person I know. I talk to him all the time. I see the results, right? This is a real example of a campaign that's effective. That couldn't be any simpler. And here's the reason why it's worked, and it may not work, that it may not have worked for other people. The consistency cliche. Everyone hears about it, right? Oh, you got to be consistent. It takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint, whatever. But here's an exact example of why this is true. As long as it's not an excuse for someone to be lazy, as long as it's not an excuse for an agency to say, oh, it takes time, as long as it's not an excuse for a marketing coordinator that's just being lazy, right? Because things do take time. Neither me or him, when we first started, closed a deal for 12 months. And we've been highly successful in our role. But the first 12 months, we had to look like the worst investment of all time. I'm surprised I didn't get fired. I'm surprised he didn't get fired, right? It could have easily been like, wow, this is a waste of money and time. But that's the reality of doing marketing campaigns and starting marketing in an MSP or continuing to market in an MSP world. It takes time. People are not switching IT providers every day. So we have to keep at it, and we have to keep persistent, and eventually the rain will come. So he said not one of the prospects he closed for those email campaigns were on his list for less than 1 year. He always looked at it. How long have they been there? Not one of them. And he closed, I don't remember the exact number, but again, it was like many clients over 7 years. Like I think most of their leads were coming in from these videos and this very simple strategy. Not one for less than a year. So if he would have quit at that 6-month mark, that 9-month mark, that 12-month mark, he probably would have quit and said, I failed. I suck at this, whatever. But he kept going and the results came. All those SEO optimized blogs were starting to gain traction. They gained more and more traction over time. It was a flywheel effect. Google knew exactly what they do and they rewarded it for them. They only create content around B2B tech tips. Oh, this must be a tech company that can help people with Microsoft 365 and data backups and cybersecurity and etc. Their 100 plus Google reviews look spectacular. So when they were cold emailing, they say, hey, who is this person? They looked on Google, they saw 100 plus 5-star reviews from businesses they know. And they say, oh, I know that business. I know that law firm, whatever. It ties the connections in and it leads to more results, right? The inbound helps the outbound. So my point in including the slide before we move on and continue through the campaign development is when you're thinking about quitting, just understand that's when everyone else quit. And the money really is right around the corner. There have been so many times, so many successes over the last 7 or 8 years where it all hinged on, thank God I didn't quit. My first year at Alltek, I almost quit twice. And my wife was like, dude, you're doing great. You're doing that. They just keep at it. And I was like, nah, I don't think this is it. I don't think I know what I'm doing. Fast forward, I've personally added $3 million in recurring revenue to Alltek services. That's not huge. That's not amazing. But man, I thought I sucked. I thought I needed to quit. So I just wanted to frame that before we move on. All right. Sorry, went a little too hard on the slide. It's just something that I really want to kind of get into you. All right, moving on. Okay, so we've identified pain points and opportunities. We know exactly who we're targeting. We've identified the different tactics that can go into our cake, right? So now we need to put the tactics that we think is going to make most sense for the target market that we're going after. So in this situation, we've laid out a campaign. We're going to create a list of businesses in our area that will target in this campaign. We're going to get a list of 1,000 different contacts at businesses. We're going to revamp our Microsoft 365 service page on our website, something that is often overlooked. If we're about to run a campaign, we better make sure whatever we're running that campaign on, the page looks awesome. What if people are landing on our site and it sucks? Most MSP websites are static. They actually look pretty good nowadays. Most MSP websites actually look pretty good, but they're static. They never get updated. They never get changed. They never get optimized. So before we run this campaign, that's part of this campaign is optimizing that Microsoft 365 page and making sure it's optimized. Make sure it's awesome. Make sure the copy's improved. We add infographics to it. Some of the videos we've made, a good lead magnet, which we'll get into, and a clear call to action. We're going to write 1 blog per week. And we can use tools like SEMrush, which is my favorite tool of all time for SEO, or even a free Google keyword planner. We're going to create 1 video per blog to optimize that blog and use for social media and YouTube and website content as well. We're going to host a monthly webinar training, helping businesses get the most out of their Microsoft 365 subscription. We decided to do that because based on the pain points that they were telling us about, they really wanted more training. Cool. Well, that's going to be an opportunity. That's going to be in our campaign for sure. We're going to receive video testimonials and case studies from happy customers that helped maximize Microsoft 365. So that's got to be an important part of the campaign. We can not only use that in the outbound stuff, but when someone lands on the website, that's going to help warm them up and convert them. We're going to create a very simple outbound sequence where we're going to be doing 1 email drip per week. We're going to send out a monthly postcard to this list of 1,000 people. And then we're going to do a phone call follow-up every single month. We're going to do remarketing ads on Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So when that person does get that postcard or they do get that phone call, but they didn't answer it and they go on our website and then they leave the website, they're seeing us all over the place. We got them. We got them in our sphere. So we're going to set that up. We're going to set up Google pay-per-click campaign in our service area for Microsoft 365 related search terms. Google Keyword Planner is going to help us with that as well. And then we're going to set up a really nice Microsoft 365 landing page with a strong offer, as strong of an offer as we can come up with, like 5 hours of free Microsoft 365 consulting, something big, not just free network review, free cybersecurity review, the stuff that every MSP is doing. We're actually going to really put a good offer on this. So that's us laying out the campaign. We'll say, hey, we know the person, we know the tactics. We're going to use these tactics. This is how we're going to lay it out. This is what the campaign looks like. We're not done yet. Next up is budget. Budget is very important. The value of an MSP client is extremely high. Almost every time I add a new client, I know they're going to be with me for 5+ years, right? And they're going to buy projects because I have a really strong account management team. They're going to buy hardware at 20, 30% gross margin. It is a highly profitable, highly valuable thing to get a client on. There is this odd thinking in the MSP space where we're scared to spend money on marketing. It's like the chicken and the egg. It's like, oh, we want results to invest in marketing. We don't want to invest in marketing until we get results. At some point, we got to rip the Band-Aid off and we got to invest in marketing. It's just the reality of it, right? And as long as it's structured like this, you got a good campaign, good content, and they're consistently running, you're going to get results from it. But again, you got to give it time. You go down the street and there's billboards, right? Like I have a client that's got like 20, 30 billboards. Each of those billboards is like $2,000 to $4,000 a month. And they've got 20 of them that I've seen personally. I'm like, how are they spending so much on marketing? Right. And it's just they understand to get results, you got to spend the money. Scared money don't make no money. That's just the reality of it. So if we want to get results from marketing, we got to spend money on marketing. And this is an MSP. I'm not a marketing agency. I can't sell you marketing services. So I'm not saying this to be like, and we got the perfect solution for you if you give me X amount. That's not why I'm saying this. I don't have anything to sell you. I'm saying this as an MSP, especially as we've grown. I'm happy to invest in marketing because I know even if I spend $12,000 on that new client, they're going to pay me back quick. So we're not going to get into cost of acquisition and all that stuff. I just want to kind of lay that out. So that's why when we lay out this budget, we're going to spend $3,500 a month in telemarketing. We're going to spend $2,000 per month in Google pay-per-click. We're going to spend $750 per month in direct mail because we got 1,000 contacts that are going to get a 70-cent postcard, the jumbo ones. They're pretty cool. Every single month. We're going to do $500 for custom content, $500 for graphic design, $400 per month for the Microsoft 365 specialist who's going to do the webinar because I'm not going to spend time creating and speaking at the webinar. I'm just going to host it, right? I got to stay lean. I'm a one-man marketing person. I ain't preparing that webinar, right? I'm just going to add that to the budget to get someone from Upwork to do the webinar on Teams and do the webinar on PowerPoint and etc. And then about $100 in remarketing ads because we don't have that many people coming to the website right now. And it's probably not going to be that expensive. So in total, our total marketing campaign budget is $7,750 a month, not including the salary of our marketing person, right? That's a very reasonable budget, right? That should not be scary, right? I mean, unless you're like a really small MSP, that might be scary. That's fine too. You might not be able to run a campaign like this yet. You're going to cut out the telemarketing. You're going to cut out the pay-per-click. That's fine. You're in a much more reasonable price point. And you're still going to get results if you stay consistent, not as much as the MSP that can do all these things, but you can still get results to build that marketing budget up. Okay. This is so important. We've identified the person. We've identified the tactics. We've identified the campaign. We've identified the budget. We can't drop the ball on content. I see businesses spending so much. Wait, I probably shouldn't cuss on this. I see people spending so much money on their campaign and the content sucks. And it's never going to convert. It's going to convert because they're spending that much money, but not nearly as well as good content. And then on the flip side, such as us, you see a small marketing budget, but great content that's getting way more results for the dollars. That's what you want to aim to do. So if your campaign's not working, well, go back to the core piece of the campaign, which is the content. If the content sucks, no one's going to convert. But if you have really strong content that talks those pain points and opportunities, it's going to convert. And it's easier to create content now, right? Because you can see what their pain points are. So an example, you might say, hey, you're paying for the Corvette, but you're driving it like a clunker. You're paying for that business premium license, but you don't even have conditional access set up. You don't even use Teams, whatever. You're using your Microsoft 365 license for Office products and email. You might send a nice postcard about all the things that Microsoft 365 offers that they're, not talking about. You might do a Microsoft 365 bingo where it's like, hey, here's all the different licenses. I bet you can fill this out. Ha ha ha. You can sorry, that was lame. You have a really nice landing page talking about those pain points and opportunities. You might have an ebook that says, hey, Microsoft 365 is more than just Office products and email. Here's everything else it has for you. You might do some wonderful tech tips around specific in-user education or manager education, such as using Microsoft Shifts more. So my point on this slide is just understanding that the best campaign in the world, if it's filled with terrible content, is going to do as well as a much slimmer campaign with good content. So content is king. It really is. So, and my recommendation is always going to be marketing in-house. I just think your marketing should be in-house, right? Because there's a lot of reasons, and I don't have time to go through all of them in this. But what I will say is the common denominator around successful MSPs that do marketing well, at least the common denominator around MSPs that do marketing well and grow for marketing, they all have someone in-house. They might have an agency, they might hire some specialists on Upworks, but the management of the campaign, the management of the content, the ideation is coming from in-house. I think that's extremely important. All right, moving on. So again, content is king. Distribution is queen. That's the campaign. Okay, and then real simple, this is going to seem real scary, but I promise it's not. You just have to map out the campaign, right? This is a monday.com example board I put together in 5 minutes before this presentation. Not like right before, when I submitted it, but just understand it's like, okay, we said we're going to do 2 videos, or when we're going to do 1 webinar per month, and we said we're going to write 1 blog per week. All those things, all those tactics that we talked about, cool. You just map it. You just map it in some project. You can do it in your PSA. You can do it in monday.com. You can do it whatever you want to do it in, and make sure somebody is accountable. If 2 people are accountable for something, no one's accountable for something. 1 person is accountable for each tactic within that campaign. That's how you keep the thing running smooth. Super simple. Don't overcomplicate this. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't really matter, as long as all those tactics are mapped and when they need to have it. All right, and then we're going to say, hey, projected results for this, we're going to get $10,000 a month MRR based on this campaign and the budget we've allocated. All right, now how do we evaluate at the end of the campaign? How do we know if this has been successful or not? A couple of things. 1, results can take time and they can be delayed from start and end date. So you might have a campaign that runs 1 quarter. But the reality is, especially the more you do these campaigns, you might find someone that closes 9 months out. And that was someone that came in to download that Microsoft 365 ebook. They were on the drip email campaign, and then they converted down the road. Well, that can be attributed to this campaign. So it's important to understand, especially when you first start running campaigns, the hard dollars, which we're going to talk about, may not be as high as the longer you run different campaigns, which is the next point. Return goes up the more campaigns you run. Of course, the ideal ROI is hard dollars. That is the ideal, obvious. Anybody can understand that, right? Like, I spent $7,000 a month. I have made $10,000 a month. We posited $3,000 a month on just this campaign. And hopefully we can do it again next quarter, because then that's pretty much all net, right? So the hard dollar stuff is great, but in the MSP market, it can be difficult to always be able to outline that as easy as we like. But oftentimes there are going to be, okay, that person came in from this telemarketing card, that person came in from this direct mail, etc. So there's going to be the hard stuff. But then there's also the other stuff that we have to look at and attribute to the campaign. The leads is very important. We may not have closed that deal, but we did get X number of leads from this campaign. That's part of the success. Those are people we can keep nurturing. Increased audience, because that stuff does equal dollars over time. And then word of mouth referrals. Word of mouth referrals is super important. It's different from referrals from clients. That can almost never be attributed to marketing, or very low. But word of mouth referrals can almost always be attributed to how well you're marketing your business. I don't have enough time right now to explain that, but it's just an important concept I want you to understand. So I think I'm getting short on time. So I got to kind of move on to the next slide. Okay, last slide. We're going to put it all together. I really hope this has been helpful. So I just want to cover this last thing to kind of wrap it all up, sum up what we've talked about. Number 1, knowing your target market inside and out. Go on forums, go on Reddit, go on forums, try and figure it out. Really know this person, craft a strategy to meet them where they are with content that doesn't suck. Consistently execute on that strategy. Consistency cliche. You may have more than one campaign strategy going one at a time, especially as you get more comfortable with marketing. You have the time and the bandwidth to do it. You can run multiple strategies, multiple campaigns at one time, analyze, improve, give it time, and always track results. And I think that's a wrap. I think I'm out of time. Really hope that you got some value out of this. I hope this gets you fired up to run a campaign in your market. And thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me today. Hope you have a great day. And I'm not sure what happens next, but